Between two pies, back of the Packers, Winderlich, quick handball to Hocking, back to Lovett Murray, he goes short, it's a mark to Zaharakis, Zaharakis has kicked the goal, the Bombers are in front of the G.
It's time to strap in and get ready. The leaders in AFL Supercoach are incoming, helping you win your leagues and climb up the rankings. You're now listening to the Insight AFL Show with your hosts, Big Horse, Skitty, and Herbie.
Hello and welcome to the Insight AFL Show. I'm your host, the Supercoach Big Horse, and I'm here with a lad who has been with the Insight Fantasy Sports team since day one. The man has been keeping an eye, a very close eye, on all things to do with the Swannies and the Giants this pre-season. I speak of none other than Phil Unfiltered, who has been kind enough to join us today. Philly, how are you?
G'day, Horse. Good to be here.
Yes, mate. Well, as we just said, you've been here since day one for us, one of our very first subscribers, and very keen on your footy. So with your knowledge of the New South Wales team and the preseason content that we've been pumping out, we at the team thought, well, now's a good time to get you on. You've been speaking a bit about the Giants and the Sydney Swans, and I think it's only fair that the people of the Supercoach community get a bit of an idea as to what's going on up in Sydney, given that we don't really hear much of it in Victoria these days.
Yeah, look, and I'd more than happy now when you approached me to see if I was available to be the Sydney correspondent. I've jumped at the chance. I had a great time filling in for Robbie in season one for an episode. Yep. So why not?
Get him back. He's got the runs on the board. Let's go the red ink again, mate.
Yep.
But for those of you at home who are watching on YouTube, or better still, if you're listening on all good audio platforms, you'll see that Philly's got his beloved Sydney Swans repping them. I believe that's a 2018 training shirt. Is that right?
Yep, that's exactly what it is.
Spot on the money. If you haven't yet, ladies and gentlemen, please hit like and subscribe at the bottom left of our screen. Even better yet, jump in the Discord. Insight Unlimited is live. And for less than 50 cents a week, which is a Zinger box upsized with an extra burger on the side, you'll get access to everything we do. Our insides, our trades, our captains, exclusive premium question and answer content every round of Supercoach, and a few other cool perks. Entry to our Discord, of course, is and always will be free if you just wanted to get involved in our general chat and talk footy amongst the community. Our $25, $50, and $100 cash leagues are up and running, but are quickly filling up fast. So if you're interested in taking part, please comment below or join our Discord, DM me, and we'll get you involved. I think there's only 4 or 5 spots in the $25 league, so spots are running out quickly. Before we move on, our unlimited code as well for a Supercoach is 913351. I repeat, 913351. And our unlimited league is proudly sponsored by The Standard Squeeze, helping you drink responsibly and conveniently. You can go to the website, thestandardsqueeze.com, and use the code INSIGHT15 to get yourself 15% off everything in store. So, Philly, as you can see here, you're repping the hat. We've got the 4-in-1s, great quality item. Free to join, and you can win an $80 prize pack thanks to the guys at the Standard Squeeze. It's really that easy, isn't it?
As a past recipient of a prize pack, I can tell you there's not much better. It goes good and it goes often. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it's not often you can join a league which costs nothing and win yourself free shit. Go figure.
Exactly.
So all it is, ladies and gentlemen, 913351. Jump in, just click join. We'll sort the rest out for you. Now, we're here to talk the Sydney Swans and GWS. We'll talk a bit about their practice match. We're going to talk a little bit about their training, players to keep an eye on, players that are hot, players that are not. But this content is brought to you by Phil and, of course, Ryan from Astute Newstead. Are you wanting to buy that first home or even an investment property and don't know how? Are you the current owner of a house or a mortgage with an interest rate above 6.2%? I can guarantee you that there are better options for you. And best part is that Ryan will do it free of charge for you. You can contact him at ryanh@eganwealth.com, on Facebook and Instagram at Hammond SHL Astute, or his phone number 0431 766 784. As you can see, if you're watching on YouTube, a lovely looking moustache that he has. Now, Philly.
Best moustache in finance, I would say.
Yeah, I'm glad you didn't say on the bloody web. Skitty would have absolutely gotten into you, mate. Now,
no.
Talk to me, mate. Swans versus GWS. You were all over this with a fine-tooth comb, mate. Start for me. Do we start with a man that's burnt many people before?
Look, it's as good a spot as any to start, because I know there are some strong opinions floating around the internet about one Isaac Heaney.
Talk to me.
Look, I rolled my eyes a little bit, as many fans would probably do the same when I saw him lining up in the centre square for bounce number one. Lo and behold, he stayed in the middle for the vast majority of the game and looked. It just exceeded expectations. It was more the length of time. We know the history with Heaney is that he plays spot minutes in the middle and can look very good, but doesn't get in there often enough to have sort of ongoing value. So to see him play a very high percentage of a full practice match in or as part of that middle rotation, as well as slotting into, albeit briefly at the end of the first half, into a position as the spare in defence, they were really working on his versatility, not just having him as that sort of permanent high half forward where we've seen him excel in years past.
Do you think this is a trap?
Oh, look, I wish it weren't. I wish it weren't. But you're a brave man if you're starting with Heaney on the idea that he may have a permanent shift into the midfield. Taylor Adams didn't play in this game.
Yeah, Luke Parker played a lot of the game forward.
Yeah, Luke. Okay, so Luke Parker is one that I think we will see him in a fairly different role for a large portion of the year, purely because he's been around. He's been around for a long time. He's not ancient, but he is, I would say, at that point in his career where it wouldn't be that surprising that he's not lent on as often as he has been. He started the game on a half forward flank, played very well, moved into the middle, played at times on Tom Green, who we're going to circle back to, was absolutely sensational in a beaten side. But I think if you're expecting Luke Parker to be the default go-to mid for the Swans, I think that might have been and gone for Luke now. Okay.
And in regards to Heaney, I don't think there's anything more appropriate.
Sometimes maybe good, sometimes maybe shit.
Yep, that's unfortunately that's a perfect Supercoach soundbite for Isaac.
Tom Papley. So he spent time in the middle in the first quarter and overall played his usual role. He's pre-season. He's been pretty good from what I hear.
Yeah, I think Paps. We know for the most part what to expect from him. The only real surprise there was how early he got midfield minutes, but he was very, very similar to last year. Would play bursts through the middle, would look very good, but the bulk of his value is as that small goal sneak. If they gave Supercoach points for goal celebrations, he'd be a must-have.
Absolutely.
Love him dearly, but no, not for me in Supercoach.
He's one of those blokes that you love to have on your team, but you hate him when he's on the other team.
Oh, I can't imagine how bad it would be to have to play within 5 meters of him regularly. He just strikes me as the sort of bloke that would never shut up.
Mate, well, we had Matthew Lloyd on the Dons and everyone hated him that didn't like Essendon, so I get a fair idea there. True. But this next guy, a little bit fascinating, but I want you to tell me more because you've had your eye on him for a little while, and that's Braden Campbell. He did look pretty good on the wing after playing mostly in defence last season. He played a
Yeah.
little more of halfback when Goulden came on, but overall was definitely further up the ground.
Yeah. Now, I will tell you, I struggle to be impartial about Braden, more so than just about any other player. I call him my adopted son. I absolutely love the kid.
Right.
The role that he was in the first half had me thinking about, okay, who am I taking out of my team to slot him into that sort of D3 position in my Supercoach team. He was playing up and down the ground on the wing. He got forward, kicked a lovely goal.
He did kick a goal, didn't he? Yeah.
Yeah, just kicked a lovely goal through traffic. He considering he's not a particularly big kid, he has a massive left leg, and some of the things that I think he brings to the team in terms of playing him in that wing role, his delivery into forward 50 is just chef's kiss. Like, I think where Braden's gotten himself into a little bit of trouble though is I think he's aware of the fact that he can do, in terms of his kicking, he can do what a lot of people just physically can't, and so he takes risks in terms of looking for those high risk, high reward kicks. When Errol Goulden came off the bench with about 5 minutes to go in the first half, that saw Braden shift back into that into the
That
back six,
goal.
which is more what we're used to from him. Which unfortunately sort of killed a bit of the Supercoach buzz.
Yeah.
But
I
at least like the sign that we're prepared to use Braden up the ground a little bit. It'll just be interesting to see how that develops.
Are you still looking at picking him?
No, I think the second half sort of gave us more of an indication of what Horse has in mind, and that just it's not quite for me.
That's it. The Horse is a good man.
Yes.
Robbie Fox, has moved from defence into Ryan Clark's old defensive forward role. Not Supercoach worthy?
Not Supercoach worthy, but probably one of the more intriguing developments for the Swans, because I think it was quite a shock to a few people that Clark was delisted, because he spent a lot of time in our best 22 last season and wasn't there by default. He really earned his role as one of the sort of last remaining shutdown taggers. So it was quite. I was quite surprised that he was moved on, but I think you could see the plan there. Robbie, the fantastic Mr. Fox, as he's known amongst the Swans fans. He's made his name as a running defender, and so this is a very big shift for him, and it'll be interesting to see how that goes.
Yeah, okay. He used to be able to accumulate the ball a little bit too, so it'll be interesting to see how he goes into that defensive role. One that not just you, but I am pretty high on is James Jordan. Probably one of the more underrated pickups that Sydney have picked up this year. I know they've picked up Grundy. I know they've picked up Taylor Adams. They're probably the top two, but James Jordan looks set for a big year on the wing out there.
Yeah, absolutely. I was really happy with what I saw from James Jordan. I think coming into the season, I think everyone was happy enough with the signing, but the question was, A, is he in our best 22? And B, if he is in our best 22, what's the role, or is he there as sort of a Mr. Fix-It? He played predominantly on the wing. He did some inside mid work. But I think the thing that stood out to me is just his effort plays. His pressure acts were just outstanding at both ends of the ground. So he, on effort alone, you would think he's locked into our best 22, and I think we'll see him on a wing for sure.
It's not just this game that stood out as well. From what I hear, he's been one of the premier performers on the track as well, and has really built himself up as a leader, I guess, on the track at the Swans this preseason. Is that right?
Yeah, 100%. And I think too, a lot of what he said in the media has been really encouraging, which you might not necessarily think is the most important thing, but he's talked about how how important the move up to Sydney was, and the fact that he knows that career-wise that it's a risk because you're moving out of the focus of a lot of the AFL media, which is in Victoria.
In Melbourne. Yep.
He's ticked all the boxes. I think he will. I expect, like I said, to see him playing predominantly on the wing. But if he were to move forward, I think he's shown that he's got some value there as well.
Awesome, mate. Good. We're not going to go too long on our boy Errol. Do you think that he has potential to be a top 8 mid by season's end?
I think if he's not a top 8 mid, I'll be very surprised.
That's hot. That's hot.
Yeah, he's well and truly locked into my side at the moment. Just does everything well, and I think that's where when he came on in the practice match, two things happened. You sort of understood exactly where. But he is the alpha. He has very quickly become the top dog in that midfield, which goes back to what I was saying about that previously being Luke Parker's role. And then you've got to balance also the presence of Chad Warner, who we'll get to shortly. But no, Errol is, I think, going to get, if the Swans are a top 4 side this year, Errol's going to be awfully hard to beat out of the Brownlow.
Yeah, that's a big call.
I always call it massive. Sometimes they say huge.
Huge call, mate. Let's see if that comes through. Matty Roberts played off a halfback and seemed to be in the role previously played by Campbell. Played okay. We've heard a little bit in Victoria that he's been one of the premier or the elite performers on the track, but what else do you know, Phil?
Yeah, got a lot of praise from the intra-club scrimmage. I think he was called out by Dean Cox. Had some really good feedback regarding how he was progressing. I was a little bit disappointed with not so much his performance. I think he performed fine, but the fact that they gave him that halfback role, which you kind of knew that he was keeping the seat warm. It tells me that he is close to first cab off the rank if we get an injury, but I don't see him in our round 1.
So you don't see him in the best 23 to start?
No.
Okay. Let's talk. So Chad Warner played most of the game between midfield and half forward. One on the shortlist, I guess, for best on ground. Looks to have clearly become Sydney's number 2 mid behind Goulden.
Yes. Yeah. Yep. I can't speak highly enough about how he looked through the course of that game, given that he was deliberately being moved around to sort of show his wares in different roles. Just knows how to find the footy. And I think balances beautifully with Errol, because where Errol is the skill and the poise and the ability to use the ball at high efficiency all the time, if you just need someone to crash a pack and get the ball, Chad's become that man.
So Chad's now taken over Luke Parker.
I think that's where I think the biggest shift is in that Swans midfield unit, is that Chad is now the I am going to get this ball out of clearance by any means necessary, and hopefully I can get it to someone in the forward 50.
Now, in 25 words or less, I want you to tell me how good Grundy has been up there and why we should all pick him.
25 words or less.
You've already burnt 5.
Gave me an enormous. How many words is that?
Yeah.
No, he was incredible. Incredible, and filled that role all day, which meant that the spot minutes where he wasn't on the field were taken by Hayden McLean. Peter Laddams was in the game day squad, was essentially not used, but played extremely well in the VFL practice match the next day. Grundy, and we were talking about this pre-recording, I think Grundy represents the best pure ruckman that the Swans have had since possibly Greg Stafford in the mid-90s.
Wow, that's a long time.
Yeah, considering how used to sharking other ruckmans taps the Swans mids have been, this is going to be pretty luxurious for them, I would imagine.
Yeah, isn't it? Yep. So basically, pick him. You going personally the Gawn and Grundy combo?
Yeah, definitely.
Yep.
Tim English is always going to be sitting there like, I wish I knew. I wish I could find a way, but I don't think you're losing much with the Gawn Grundy 1-2.
No. And now we're still talking practice match in a side that was solidly beaten for most of the day. Tom Green was about as good as you'd expect. Got heaps of the ball and excelled as players started to tire. Arguably best on ground alongside a couple of the Swannies players.
Yeah, I think Tom Green, to explain how good he was in this game is that you don't just sort of say, in the conversation for best on ground, but there is a real strong case that he was the best individual in a team that for most of the game was behind by between 4 and 7 goals.
Okay.
Just he was everywhere. And I think the fact that his influence on the game only got bigger as the game went on, he could really rack up some incredible scores this year.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for a slightly unfavourable bye schedule, he'd be in my team right now. I'm just a bit unsure about that.
We get a free look early, don't we? Because he won't have a price rise until I think it's round 4. So arguably, probably a nice little watch this space on him, as if he pumps out a couple of monster scores, we can potentially bring him in at a discounted price and he's still at 620K.
Yep.
Now, Hogan kicked 4 goals in this game, but so did Cadman. Now, I note that Cadman does look bigger and stronger and will arguably be better in his second AFL season.
Yep.
But I still don't see Supercoach relevance. Can you tell me whether I'm dreaming or whether you think that it's probably going to take another year or two until we see the best of Cadman in the Supercoach world?
No, I think you're spot on there, and there are a couple of reasons for that. So you can look at the box score and see Cadman kicked 4 goals. That's great. He had 1 goal to half time, and one of those 4 he was gifted by Jesse Hogan, who I might add played superbly.
He's really found his niche there down there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the fact that there is such a gap, at least from what I've seen, between Hogan as their number 1 forward and then Cadman, who's the very promising, obviously number 1 pick for a reason. But he still feels a couple of years away. And I think he was a little bit too easily taken out of the game in terms of being able to have an impact, where Hogan, you were worried about him getting the ball every time the ball went into their forward 50.
Yeah, gotcha. Let's keep the conversation on bigs. Logan McDonald. So he's been in the system for a little while, and we both brought up last year that this man will be a lot better without Buddy around. He is Sydney's number 1 forward now. How much of a step forward do you anticipate Logan McDonald taking this year?
Oh, I'm not going to say Coleman.
A huge call.
In all honesty, Logan looked so confident in what he was doing. He's out of Buddy's shadow. I think that we've been building up to this for a couple of years. I think, in hindsight, it's only a couple of practice games, but it just looks like we've handled it really well, and that he's now in the right space to succeed. Okay. He'll have the support from Amati, McLean. Hayden McLean is arguably the best contested mark in the club.
He's a very strong dude.
Yeah, so he's not going to be triple teamed, but he will demand the number one defender. I think he's going to have some really eye-catching performances, but with just about all key forwards and Supercoach, it's probably not. There's probably limited value there, but I expect he'll be fun to watch as a Swans man.
So is he going to be playing more deep forward, or do you think he'll be playing up the ground as a high half forward, delivering it to the guys of Amati and McLean playing deep forward?
No, I think he is the deep forward. I think he showed last year. I think he showed last year that he had the capacity to work up the ground.
He does. Yep.
So it reminded me a little bit of what Barry Hall used to do for us on occasion.
Okay.
Where Barry had the ability to sit back and be that dominating high forward, but could work up to a wing and sort of keep and drag a defender out into deep water.
Mm-hmm. So do you see this is Logan McDonald's third year? Is that right?
Yes. This is his third campaign.
Do you see a similar progression type scale that Josh Kennedy took from when he went from Carlton to West Coast? Because when you look on the basis of it, they're both good leading up the ground. They're both good around goal. They're both good kicks of the footy.
Yep.
Like, I anticipate that Logan McDonald could kick 40 goals this year and then build on that into next year. Like, yeah, he won't be Supercoach relevant this year, but he's a definite forward option where he could kick you 40 to 45 goals this year.
Yeah, look, it's not one that I've necessarily thought about in terms of that comparison, but I don't think you're far off the mark. I think where the biggest difference that I can think of now between the two is that I think when I think of Josh Kennedy, I think of you really benefit being the second forward because your man's going on to Josh Kennedy, fading off onto Josh Kennedy. I don't think Logan's there yet. So it will be interesting, but yeah, look, time will tell on that one.
Yeah. Not great signs for Angus Sheldrick, who only played part of the fourth quarter in a team missing Taylor Adams. He will star in the VFL, but as you've now researched and can confirm for us, he has been given Josh Kennedy's number 12. So they're not just going to give that to any old nuffy, are they?
No, not at all. And I'll shout out Robbie Kennedy, who's specifically asked for an Angus Sheldrick update. It was a little bit disappointing seeing that he only played in the fourth quarter of the practice match. Okay. Did play, like, he played well. He certainly didn't do his chances any harm, but I feel like his injury last season was really poorly timed. I think he's just lost his place in the queue a little bit.
Okay.
I love the kid. He's a bull. He's a bull. I affectionately refer to him as Cannonball Gus because he's as tall as he is wide, and he's just all heart. I think he's the ideal guy to come in if we do have a bit of hard luck with injury. But he's too good to spend the entire year in the VFL. So Absolutely. he's in that sort of no man's land.
Yeah. Enough about your Swannies, boys. Let's talk about some more GWS lads. Lockie Ash. So he's a defender. I think he's around the 440K mark. He did come on last year, has been training well by all reports, but didn't really catch the eye on this practice match.
No, not really. Did a few. It was similar to Lockie Whitfield, but
Lockie Whitfield got a lot of the ball, didn't he? He didn't do much with it.
He did. He got a lot of the ball and kind of had Tom Mitchell disease. Got a lot of the ball, didn't do a lot with it. But no, I was expecting big things out of Lockie Ash because the observation out of the GWS scrimmage from a couple of weeks back is that they split the squad into Tom Green. Tom Green was on one side, and I'm not sure who was captaining the other side, but Lockie Ash was on the other side. And at one point, Tom Green had to take his blokes aside and basically scream at them and ask who the hell's supposed to be marking this bloke because he's brought his own Sharon.
Yeah.
So you hear something like that, and you're like, oh, okay, we've got a bit of a smoky here, and it just didn't really pan out. one to watch for the next match, but I think
Yep.
he's sort of fallen into those maybe, but probably not.
I want to talk. All right, Phil. So let's talk about two that have really caught the eye, so to speak, of the guys down here in the southern states, but only because of their performance on the weekend. But I know that you've been not so much all over him, but you've had an interest in both these guys for a couple of weeks now, especially after observing their training habits. And that's Jacob Weir and Jack Buckley. As I said, they both looked really good on the weekend, but what have you got to share with us?
Yeah, so I'm going to start with Jacob Weir, and I'll tell you that about 3/4 into that practice match, I had the Supercoach app out, and I was trying to work out the finances to get Weir
To bring him in.
onto my
Yeah.
midfield bench, which I'm pleased to say I succeeded. He's there. He's staying there.
Good.
He was probably the surprise, or one of two like big surprise packets in this match for the Giants. And I think I'm pretty confident to say that he will definitely play round one, because
Okay.
he was competing, from all reports, with Ryan Angwin for one spot in the 22. Not saying Angwin didn't play well, but Weir played
was that much
very,
better.
very, very well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Jack Buckley across the back line.
Jack Buckley, now very, very good intercepting defender. Probably played the best of any Giants defender in terms of the limiting Logan McDonald's impact.
Okay.
The one thing that I will say as a cautionary thing with Jack Buckley is that Nick Hines didn't play in this game. And
Okay.
I wonder if
Nick Haynes. Yep.
Nick Haynes. Yeah, Nick Haynes. Just wondering whether Jack Buckley's impact was helped by the fact that that's usually the sort of role that Haynes excels in. So, but in a vacuum, played very, very well, and was would have been in the one of the top 3 or 4 Giants all day.
One of the questions I've been getting this pre-season, because we haven't heard a lot down here in Victoria, is Harry Himmelberg. Where are they training for him to play? Is he going to start forward, or have they got him down back with the likes of Sam Taylor and Jack Buckley?
So they've got him down back, which is where we want to see him for Supercoach purposes.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of where the good news ends, though. He was pretty ordinary in this one.
Yeah, right.
Just didn't really get involved like we know we've seen him do before when he's playing in that back six.
Yeah.
You mentioned Sam Taylor. He was Sam Taylor. He is very clearly their number one defender.
I rate him. Yeah.
He's very good.
He's
very,
good.
very, very good. Very, very consistent. Probably, I would say, I would put him alongside your Harris Andrews for key defenders in the league
100%.
at the moment. It's just that he didn't get a huge amount of help outside of Jack Buckley in this particular match.
Okay. Now, one I know you've been dying to talk about before we get into something a bit is Nick Blakey, the Lizard.
Yes.
Talk to me about the Lizard and how good is he going to be this year?
Oh, I love Nick Blakey. I loved Nick Blakey as a forward, which is what he started as when he was this wiry kid running around with a famous surname, and he's just his dare and dash and run and carry doesn't leave you with the most stress-free viewing experience.
No,
but he's not Lewis Roberts Thompson either. He just, some of the things that he does. I
saw one clip from the weekend where he hit up a target, they dropped it, he got the handball receive, he hit up the forward line, I think they dropped it, he picked up the pill, and then just lazily kicked it from 35 out on the run on the left. Yeah, you just look at that and you're like, fuck me, this guy is going to be insane.
You've just perfectly described it was the last goal of the game. And it was a full field effort at 100 miles an hour.
Yep.
And I think in a way, like you look at somebody like Nick Blakey and you look at the highlights packages and you go, this guy must be like an absolute Supercoach gun. And I don't know necessarily if he'll ever get to that level, purely because the individual things that he does, they'd be so energy sapping. I think that the way that he plays probably puts a ceiling on his Supercoach output. But my God, it's good to watch.
I think he's just short of 500k too. So you'd want to have some real big agates to bloody pick him in your side.
Yeah, gets himself up and over 20 possessions on a fairly regular basis. But yeah, just falls short of being a really super viable Supercoach option.
For sure. All right, so something different that we're going to do for the viewers at home listening on all good audio platforms and those you watching on YouTube is I've given Phil some homework. And I've asked him while he's been down at trainings, watching on TV, reading the paper, that I wanted him to pick out 3 players who are flying, 3 who have disappointed, and 3 that are ones to watch for us at home. So, Phil, you 3 that are flying. We won't go into too much detail, but give us 3 that you think that, you know, are either walk-up starts to be in your Supercoach side or are teetering on the edge.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, the first name's not going to surprise anybody. Tom Green, 621.5k midfielder, just absolute class. He's not quite Errol as far as you know, disposal efficiency, but the guy just racks up possessions like nobody's business.
He's got a lot of Clayton Oliver about him.
Yeah, I'd have to rewatch the practice match, but I'm not entirely convinced that there wasn't actually 2 of him on the field.
Yeah, right. He was that good.
Yeah.
Who's your second, mate?
Second, again, not a surprise, Brodie Grundy, 481.9k. I mean, this podcast has very rightly spoken about him ad nauseum. He was every bit as good as advertised. The clear number 1 and clear solo ruckman for the Swans.
Let's just say the clear number 1 ruck in New South Wales.
Yes. Set and forget, because he absolutely towelled up Kieran Briggs, who was one of the surprise packets from last season.
He was. And who's your third?
And number 3 on my list, but number 1 in all our hearts, Chad Warner. 560.3k. Just a bull. And if his disposal efficiency continues to improve, I think he's going to start stealing Brownlow votes off of Errol.
I can definitely see a world where if he's taking over Luke Parker's role as the inside mid, that he could very well be a top 8 mid by the end of the year.
Yep. It's going to be tough because you don't often see that happen within one club. But, you know, it definitely could happen.
Yeah. Now, and for those of you that think that I'm a bit crazy going top 8 on Chad Warner, you'll just have to go back and watch the the grand final between Geelong and Sydney, that Sydney got belted by 88 points, and yet he still scored 146 Supercoach points in the grand final and was clearly the best on for Sydney, and was probably a bit unlucky that he didn't get more votes in the best on ground award.
Yeah, it's still a bit too soon, Horse, not going to lie.
Mate, you've had out on Essendon a lot of times. Just give me this one. Now,
yeah, no, fair enough.
Who for the New South Wales teams has disappointed you so far this preseason? The negative press, the guys who aren't lighting it up on the track, the people who are priced where you'd think you'd get more than what perhaps they're going to show to start the year.
Yeah, so I've got, and look, apologies to Giants fans. I do have 3 names from GWS on this list, and what I'm going to say about all 3 of these is that they're not by any means bad players, but success is a function of expectation. and I
Yep.
feel like they've both. Promised the world, and in these early stages, just not quite delivered. And
Yep.
Lockie Whitfield, as a 519k defender only, is the top of that list at the moment.
Yep.
Didn't have any issues getting a hold of the ball, but just didn't do anything with it. Just was sort of there.
He's
which
been
is-
historically known as someone that could rack up 25 touches and only get you 80 Supercoach points too.
Yeah, and by the look of it, as much as we want to see him push into that 600, 650 kind of caliber, I don't think much has changed for Lockie.
Okay.
So he'll continue to frustrate people. The next on the list there is Lockie Ash, and at 468.5, you might be looking at Lockie Ash going, gee, you've been a bit harsh there, Phil, but he really put himself on my radar because during the GWS intra-club scrimmage, he had got so much of the ball that Tom Green had to take half the squad to one side,
right.
basically give them a bake about who's supposed to be marking this bloke, who's not doing their job, because he was getting that much of the ball. So I really had one eye on what's Lockie Ash going to do, and is he going to be that mid-price defender that we all sort of want to find? And he just wasn't.
So it's a solid no.
Yeah, it's a solid no. And the third name
Which is surprising.
Yeah, it's a proven gun, but I feel like it's fair to say that he may be on the downslide, is Stephen Canilio. Midfield only this year, so he's lost his forward eligibility, but he's still worth 568.4k.
Okay.
I couldn't be more off a bloke. And I think Tom Green looking like he's about to take that genuine step into superstardom is part of the reason why I'm looking at Canelio going, I don't know really how effective or what's going to be left to do for a guy who's been a go-to for that Giants midfield for a number of years now.
Do you think they're going to push him forward a little bit more?
Well, I mean, I think they will, which is why it's odd that he's lost his forward eligibility. But at mid 500s, I also don't want him in my forward line.
You're right. He's probably the third best midfielder now. You got Tom Green, you got Josh Kelly, and then Stephen Canelio.
Yeah, and just touching on Josh Kelly, he was as advertised. He's very much the sort of Rolls Royce.
He's a Rolls Royce
of that team. Looks beautiful in everything that he does. Personally, I don't have the intestinal fortitude to have the Josh Kelly experience.
Yeah.
But I can't really criticize anyone who does go in that direction too much, because
he's got a very big ceiling.
Massive ceiling.
Give me three to watch, Billy.
Jacob Weir, 123.9 mid only. At that price, his ownership should be 75% plus.
Yeah.
Based on what I saw on the weekend, just no fear. Looked like he belonged. Racked up possessions when everyone else looked like they were a step slow. It just looked fantastic. Braden Campbell, I've got on this list on the strength of how he looked in the first half. So he's not going to be in my round one team, but I'm going to be watching him really carefully to see if he does float into that wing sort of roaming position more often. His usage by foot is close to the best in the club, and we do have Errol Goulden at the club. So, this again, all the potential in the world, but I just don't know if his role is going to be there to be as Supercoach relevant as I would like.
Jacob Weir still at only 4% of teams.
That's crazy.
It's a great point for those of you listening at home.
It's crazy. If he doesn't gain 10% before the Giants' first round, I'll be stunned.
We'll check back this week for those of you watching at home, listening on all good audio platforms, and we'll get a gauge as to what his ownership will be. But I'm picking it'll be after delivering this pod and when his name gets out, it'll be between 15 and 20% before round 0.
Yeah. Which honestly, I mean, that means
That's probably
that
still too low.
that's still 80 to 85% of teams that won't have him. So you've got an advantage there. He'll play,
right.
he'll make money. It's what you want from your bench.
Harvey Thomas. Now, I have heard absolutely nothing on this guy. Could not tell you what he looked like, what foot he kicks on, what hands he uses, what his hairstyle is. This is why we've got you in. Talk to me. Harvey Thomas.
Well, look, I don't think I can't be too rough on you for not hearing about Harvey Thomas, considering that he's at pick number 59 in the last draft.
Okay.
But my goodness, I mean, if we're looking for a bolter from the clouds, it's this kid.
Right.
Just looked completely assured with everything he was doing. He got after it. If anything, I feel like the only thing that would stop him being a really strong chance to make a round 1 debut is Jacob Weir, and the fact that there probably isn't room in a 22 for both of them, and Weir would definitely be the preferred pick. But if you're picking your side to deliberately stash someone so you don't have to use a trade later, this kid's going to play a fair whack of senior footy. He couldn't have done more to put himself in the frame as someone who was just a virtual unknown.
That's insane. That's why we get the big dog in from New South Wales himself. I have not heard, and I doubt many people down here in Victoria have heard of who or what Harvey Thomas is. But if we see him lining up in round 0, you've heard it here first on the Insight Fantasy Sports. Now, the Insight Fantasy Sports Supercoach World Cup.
Oh,
I'm sure you've considered yourself good at Supercoach, but are you at home the best? Well, we aren't just talking NRL or AFL. We're talking about all 4 Supercoach sports. Now, for the first time ever, we're going to find out who the best in the world at Supercoach is. The Insight Supercoach World Cup is here. NRL, AFL, BBL, and NBL. Over the next 12 months, your rank will be counted as a percentage of total players across all 4 sports. It's $10 to enter, so next to nothing. The top 10 players will be paid out at the end of the NBL season in 2024-25. How do you join? Simply just join the Discord and you'll see everything you need to know. So again, the Supercoach World Cup, NRL, AFL, NBL, BBL. If you think you have what it takes to finish top 10 in the Insight World Cup, prizes coming your way. You're already a part of it, aren't you, Philly?
I'm absolutely a part of it. And I'm going to give a shout out to the Supercoach Whisperer over on the NRL pod, because this was his baby. This is his idea. I think it's an absolute cracker. And speaking as someone who, if there's a Supercoach game to play, I'm playing it. I am absolutely pumped for this. And as regular listeners to Insight Fantasy Sports will be well aware, we do have the best Supercoach players in the world in our Discord. So this is going to be the best of the best of the best.
It is going to be very hotly contested. We had the number 1 NBL player in Supercoach in our Discord last year who took out the grand prize. Congratulations to My Name is DVG, our man in the Discord. In the B, and also our NBL community team finished top 150 out of, 10,000 people that played NBL Supercoach. Our community BBL team finished in the top 1,000. Our NRL and AFL community sides are yet to be chosen, but if they're following suit from the others and we can get inside the top 100 to 150 of those sports as well, you know you've got a good community around you, talking footy, making sense of all things AFL, NRL, and what have you. Now, practice matches, they start this Tuesday and are going to be recorded by Champion Data, which means Supercoach scores will be available as of this Tuesday. Join our Discord. We will be releasing Supercoach scores at the end of every quarter and also during games. We do have access to that, so we can drop that knowledge on anyone that wants to be in our Discord. The link will be below. Also, Jump on, like us on Twitter, on X, whatever you want to call it. Like and subscribe down the bottom here. As our friend Josh Lloyd, who's joined us on some NBA podcasts in the past, would say, double bang that shit. Like, subscribe, get the bell so you know we're going live, so you can jump on, ask us questions, and get all the good shit courtesy of the guys here at the Insight Fantasy Sports. Phil, before we leave, where can the viewers find you? And if they're looking to follow you and your observations from what you've seen and know of these New South Wales sides.
Yeah, so you can find me on at Phil Unfiltered. That's all one word, at Phil Unfiltered on X. I still call it Twitter, but yeah, X.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'll be doing some live tweeting during Swans games and GWS games, and trying to steer you all in the right direction there.
Absolutely. Now, guys, we're done. But Phil, before we go, anyone you'd like to shout out or say thank you to before we leave?
Oh, other than your good self for having me on, just a shout out to all the Insight boys. You touched on it before, doing amazing work across NBA, NRL. Obviously, this is the AFL pod, NBL. Like, this is just it's heaven for sports nuts like myself. I've fallen into a great community here. It's a privilege to be sort of on this pod with yourself, and you guys just do. It's a great brand doing great work with great sponsors.
Absolutely. Thank you, mate. And for us, like for me, it's a good opportunity to talk to other like-minded people who like sport, because my missus gets sick of me talking footy and basketball and that to her all the time. So jump in the Discord again. We can talk shit all day when we're talking sports. I'm happy. The missus is happy because she doesn't have to listen to me. But again, I'm the horse. This is Phil Unfiltered. And this has been another episode of the Insight Fantasy Sports Podcast. See ya.